guys, and welcome back. It has been a long time since I have made a video, but I want to address some things about The Division, as this is the main game that I'm currently playing. First, I want to go over some of the good things that are actually in the game. There's a lot of detail in the game. The world feels very fleshed out. Everywhere you look, there's little details, whether it's from animals, to the placement of vehicles, to snow, lighting, fog, many think glass even. There's many things in this game that are just done very well as far as the visual aspects. Now, obviously, it's still a game, and on consoles, you're going to see graphics pop. You're going to see other things that obviously happen in any game anywhere. It's just the way it is. But when you really get down and look at things, they did a very good job at making a very beautiful world for you to play in. Another thing that I really like that they did in the game is the crafting. Crafting, and I'll get a little bit more into this later, is something that's still actually very important in the game, and I like that. A lot of games come out and they say crafting, we have it, it's a great way to get items, but they don't really mean it. The best items come from drops, never from crafting, and that is really not the case in The Division. Even though they have said that they want to kind of shy away from that, they want drops and killing mobs to be the primary way to get a lot of loot, this just really isn't so. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more later and why that actually is a problem with the way they have it currently set up. Another thing that's really good about this game is the Dark Zone, and it's also a problem with the game as well. The Dark Zone provides a very unique atmosphere. There's a lot of tension in the Dark Zone. It's definitely a different feeling than just a normal PvP. There's PvE and PvP mixed. People can help you, they can hinder you. It's just a crazy anything that can happen place that gives this unique feeling that you just do not get in almost any other game. It provides a very unique experience, and that's something that's very awesome about the game. Another thing that they've actually done very well as far as, and this goes maybe not quite into the game itself as much as it goes into the community itself, is community involvement. I know that some players and some people in the community are not happy with the amount of detail they get, they're not happy with the responses, they're not happy with the lack of responses, they don't feel that they've been given enough information. But when you actually look at everything they're doing to engage the community, from streams to the state of the game every week, to replying on the forums, to saying, okay, there's this bug and it's a problem with our servers and this is what we're doing to try to fix it, versus just saying, hey, there's a problem and we fixed it now. I understand there's still room for improvement. There's even drastic room for improvement. But if you look at what they're actually doing in comparison to a lot of other game companies, they're actually doing that very well. And yes, absolutely needs to improve. Yes, there's room for improvement, but they are definitely doing steps, or taking steps, I should say, to better that. And I definitely appreciate that, and I think more people in the community should appreciate that as well. Another thing that I actually like about the game is the fact of this complexity of a lot of different stats. Some people have said that, we need to simplify things, that we need to get things a lot simpler, that these stats need to go away, that we need to just have a couple and just tweak that. And it might be easier for balancing other things, but I really like the complexity, the uniqueness of the fact there's a lot of different stats that can roll on gear and weapons. The fact that there is so much variance actually, to me, makes the game far more interesting than if it was just a few couple simple stats that rolled on things. I do think on the flip side that they should allow you to re-roll gear a whole lot more. You should be able to re-roll more than one stat. So some of the bad things in the game. One of the things that I said I liked a little bit earlier was that crafting was important, and still is. The only way to get 204 weapons that I've actually seen, because I don't see them dropping anywhere, is from crafting. The only way to get the blueprints to craft them is to be a certain Dark Zone level and buy them from a Dark Zone vendor. And these change every, I believe, week. So, that being said, if you want a high-end weapon, the only way to get it currently is to craft it. Now, this leads to some problems. One is they've nerfed crafting. They've made crafting a lot harder, you get a lot less resources back, it takes a lot more resources to craft, and it takes a lot more resources to refine up to higher levels of resources. They've also said that they want to move the primary way you get loot away from crafting and to drops. Personally, I still enjoy crafting, and I think they should be about even, instead of one being higher than the other, That being said, with all the nerfs to crafting and the fact that the only way to get high-end weapons is through crafting, this makes it very detrimental, I feel, to the game. Also, the fact that you can craft some high-end set pieces, say 214 level, also means that crafting is still important into that aspect of gearing up. I personally like the fact that crafting is important, and I think it should be important moving forward. What I don't like is the fact that they have made crafting so much more difficult that it currently doesn't really feel like you can progress that fast with it. On the flip side of this, the reason why crafting is still so important is because drops in this game are so terrible. Absolute trash. Here's the problem. You go out, you kill a bunch of mobs, high ends now drop like rain, but the problem is that they're all really low. You can go out and farm stuff out in the high level dark zone, and most of the time it's only going to be around 162 gear score, not even the 180 plus, which is already crap. Currently anything that's not up in the 200 range is really actually pretty low. And as you start gearing up, you realize this after about a week of patch 1.1 content. You need to be running around in 214 or higher for just about everything. And nothing drops at that level. Every once in a while you'll get a nice gear drop, but even then most of the set pieces don't even drop at the 214 gear level. That makes them practically worthless. And yes, I understand that gear score doesn't necessarily mean that something is actually better than what you have. I've had high-end items drop that were absolutely terrible. But it does mean that more than likely they're going to be better than what you currently have. And if you maybe need to recalibrate them, you can recalibrate them higher than a lower gear score item. All in all, I think this needs to be relooked. I personally like crafting a lot of things, but if they want the main way you get items to be from drops, that needs to take a drastic change. Next is the lag and bugs in the game. I'm not talking about the exploits, but I will go into that soon. I'm talking about Dark Zone lag when you have a headset plugged in, or just other little bugs in the game, such as the one is none reload bug and other things that just keep on creeping up over and over again. Matchmaking bugs. All kinds of things. The game's still very unstable. I enjoy playing it, but a lot of these bugs can sometimes be very frustrating, especially if they show up during a very hard part of the game, such as the incursion. Which of course brings me to the last but not least thing, by any means, are exploits in the game. Now, I'm not talking about cheaters on PC, that's a whole nother story. I'm talking about exploits. Specifically, the main one that I want to focus on is the Falcon Lost exploits. And not just Falcon Lost exploits, but the Falcon Lost 240 gear score exploit that happened early when it was launched. The only way that I'm aware of to get 240 gear is to actually do the incursion on challenge mode, and you get one piece a week. People through a disconnect glitch are able to get unlimited pieces of this gear, and therefore gear up their character far higher than any legitimate player could. Now, other people have used other exploits such as farming Bullet King or Madison Field Hospital, other things like that to basically get some crafting materials or Phoenix credits. All those things, though, could be gotten through legitimate means, and a lot of times they're just taking shortcuts. A legitimate player could spend more time in the game and get to where maybe an exploiter had actually gotten to, such as running Lincoln Tunnel a whole bunch and other things like that. Sure, they might be a little bit behind an exploiter, but not so much that that exploiter, and of course through RNG in the game and different roles, that exploiter might actually even be behind a legitimate player, depending on how items they crafted rolled or even how drops landed. Not so with the Falcon Lost 240 gear score exploit. That gear is pretty much guaranteed to roll higher than what you currently have, and getting a full set of it puts them months ahead, or a month or two ahead, of legitimate players. For me, this is a big problem, and those that did that particular type of exploit, I believe, need to be punished. The reason for this is they need to set a precedence. And here's why. For one, it's creating a very toxic community. You have people using exploits, rampaging through the Dark Zone, doing all kinds of things that really lead to toxic gameplay. and they believe that they won't be punished. They also believe that this is just how the game should be played. It basically makes the game a lot less fun for everyone else just trying to play the game legitimately. So now we have a Dark Zone full of players using talent stacking, exploited gear, all kinds of things, basically, to go through and to give them an edge on other legitimate players. And whenever they get talked about being punished for such actions or for basically violating the code of conduct, they get into a fury and a rage and how they're so entitled and it's not their fault that the game's broken. Well, actually, it is your fault. It's one thing to go out and find an exploit and accidentally, or maybe even on purpose, and then to test it out, report it to the developers, and leave it at that. It's another thing to abuse an exploit for personal gain in the game. It's another thing to abuse that exploit to troll other players, to basically make the game less fun for other people or ruin the economy. That, in my opinion, is unacceptable. And it should be unacceptable behavior in the community. And yet, I see forums, Reddit, and so many other places, even other YouTubers, videos, and game outlets, basically saying, hey, it's not our fault that we exploited, it's the developer's fault. And don't get me wrong, I definitely think the developer needs to own the problems with the game, the fact that so many things can be exploited, and they need to fix them. They need to do better quality assurance on their content, and they need to patch these problems. That being said, the exploiters should not get off scot-free. By doing so, what you're saying is that you are proving, or at least you're not punishing, toxic behavior. If you think about it, gaming communities have banned people for, say, using foul language or creating content such as clan tags that were inappropriate, other things like that. We're talking about behavior that is far less toxic than using a lot of these exploits to troll players. Now, I don't think they should be permabanned or anything like that. I believe they should receive a 3-day ban, and the 240 gear that they have exploited should be taken away from them. Moving forward, I think players should be afraid of using exploits because there should be repercussions to that kind of toxic behavior. Or else, what you're going to see is all legitimate players leaving the game and the game being full of nothing but exploiters and cheaters. Why? Because everyone else doesn't like that toxic behavior. On a positive note to all this, Hamish has said in today's stream that they will be addressing the issue of punishment to players that use exploits and cheats in their next State of the Game update. The next State of the Game update has been postponed to this Thursday due to maintenance also moving to this Thursday. The reality of everything is, I do love this game overall, I really enjoy playing it, and I have a lot of fun with my friends. But there are definitely times when I know I am getting attacked by an exploiter. And there's times I've died, tons of times I have died, lost a PvP fight, had my gear taken, and I had no question in my mind that that person was not an exploiter, and I just got outgunned, I got outmanned, I got outplayed. Other times, though, it's very, very suspicious when you have high armor, decent health, and someone's able to drop you in about half a second. Now, there are builds out there that can do that, but for the most part, it doesn't work that way. All in all, I have high hopes for the game, and it still can be turned around, and I'm really hoping that Massive and Ubisoft look at this and do that. I also really hope that a lot of the toxic players and toxic behavior gets dealt with, and that includes people that are blatantly exploiting things, not just even farming materials through an exploit, but blatantly exploiting the game in such a way to make it not fun to others. Again, such as talent stacking or farming gear in a quantity that legitimate players cannot get access to. That's all I have for my current state of the game. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please, as always, like and subscribe.